Oh my God, happy July and welcome to another amazing episode of Secrets in the Saddle podcast. But before we get started, as usual, we have a little coach's announcement. So this is something cool. You can get on a waiting list for my September Cycling Skills 4-week online workshop for women. The registration isn't ready, but we're taking people on a waiting list. So you guys get the first dibs to signing up for this workshop that's going to start September 9th. It's every Thursday afternoon from 4 till 5. So it's quick. What we do is every week we talk about a cycling skill. So we always start off with pedal stroke, and then we move into hill climbing, and then we do speed, and then we tie it up with nutrition. So every week you get one of those workshops, you get homework, and then we have a Q&A on Tuesday at noon to go over any type of questions that you might have from the homework, from the recording or the workshop that we went through. So basically what you have is me for a month. So you can pick my brain as the coach with regards to any type of cycling skills or cycling type of questions. It can be about competition. It can be about touring. It can be about centuries. So basically you got a coach for a month. So check it out. My Cycling Skills 4-week online workshop for women. Go to cyclingskillspro.com and register for the VIP. You guys will be the first to get the opportunity to sign up. I'm only going to take a certain amount of women in the program, so make sure you're the first one there. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I put coaching tips up there and on TikTok, and sign up for my YouTube channel, and don't forget to follow this podcast. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming back for another amazing episodes of Secrets in the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie. And we have an amazing lady here, Prapri. Oh, we're going to have to Prapri. No, is that right? I'm going to do this again.
Prapti.
Prapti.
Prapti, yeah.
Prapti. Okay, let's do this again. Now, remember you gave me another name.
Yeah. Back in the day, I was Debbie Jensen when I raced on the national team. Yeah.
Okay. Can I say Debbie Jensen, now known as Prapti?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, because what I probably, if I put in the title, can I put Debbie so people would pick up on it?
Yeah, you could put Debbie Prapti Jensen. Okay. Sometimes I'll sign things like that if it's kind of a legal thing, and then
okay,
it's all good.
All right. Okay, let's start again. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out for another amazing episode of Secrets in the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Dow, and this amazing lady that I came across the other day who used to race professionally in the 80s when I was struggling through high school. She's out in Europe racing. So I would love to welcome Debbie Jensen, known as Prapti Jensen or Debbie Prapti Jensen, here in the Ottawa region. I am so excited to have you here. Now, before you come out, I'm just going to give you a little bit of her bio, and then we're going to have her come out and spill all the beans as to what it was like racing in the 80s as a female. So Prapti was a lover, or Debbie was a lover of cycling from the age of 7 years, zooming around on a purple banana seat bike. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I had a banana seat bike. We piled all 3 of our sisters on it. So all 3 of us would zoom around on it. And so she grew up in Calgary, doing alpine skiing was the norm, and then cycling for the off season. Competition cycling took over in 1984. I think I was still in elementary school. In the day of leather hairnets, not helmets. So I have some cool pictures that she had, and I'm going to be sharing them right here and over here. You guys can see them on the YouTube recording of this. Surprising to many, including herself, competitive cycling led to a discovery of meditation and a now 35-year daily practice studying with her spiritual teacher, Sri Chinmoy.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Cycling and good food are perfect partners. So in 1995, Prapti started up one of the Ottawa's early vegetarian restaurants. And you might have, if you lived in the Sandy Hill area, you might have went to her restaurant. It was Perfect Satisfaction Promise. Is that what it was called?
Close. Perfection, Satisfaction, Promise.
Perfection. I'm trying to read too fast. From 1995 to 2018, she was in the Sandy Hill area. And in 2019, she's reunited with her love for cycling and the great joys of competition. She's aiming to come back and really dive into some local events, local time trials, and she's looking to get some new PBs and really make her mark in the Masters area. I can't wait. I'm part of it. Welcome, Debbie Prapti, to the podcast. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really fun for me, actually. And yeah, it's a great program. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. So now, what I love to start every episode is asking how you got into cycling. And of course, we're going to spend a lot of time just telling us about what it was like to race in the 80s as a female. Because like I was mentioning, I just interviewed Catherine Bertine, episode 81. So you go back and check her out. She is currently, advocating for female cycling to be, paid as much as the men. But I'd like to know what it was like. Let's talk about your experience and how you got started.
Sure. Well, wow, back in the early 80s, I was involved in alpine skiing. And so the off season, we would ride all the time. And I lived in the mountains in Alberta and BC. And, I hung out with the guys all the time because it was a lot of fun, and we just rode bikes a lot. And I was always killing myself to keep up to them. And then they'd go to races on the weekend, and it's like, oh, let me try the racing. And I ended up doing pretty good in the racing. And then they're like, oh, let's go to the provincials. And then,
let's go provincials.
So then I did well in the provincials in Alberta. And then I guess they found me and asked me to come to Texas and do a training camp in Texas.
Okay. Yeah.
So then that's kind of how I got into, it was a short-lived career before I went on to the national team. It was basically 2 years of local road racing.
Wow. So, okay. Now, how many other women were on the start line? Like, what does the start line look like back then?
Back then, I can vividly remember being in Summerside in BC. And there'd be 50 guys, senior men, different categories. And then there'd be 6 women and the cadet men. So this is
what?
Cadet boys.
Oh, boy.
Ride with the cadet boys.
Yeah. Junior girls, you're like fabulous.
I know. So I think I was 23, 22, 21 at that time. And then the guys were like under 14. But then once we got, to the provincials, there'd be like 40 women, 50 women riding in provincials. Yeah. So there was anyways, that's how it started out. Yeah.
So it seems like kind of similar to now. Like depending on what race you go to, sometimes there's a lot of women, but I find Masters category, it's usually the smallest. Because when I started, I was 34. 35 racing,
Mhm.
and we're masters. And so it was like lumped in with, like you said, the junior boys or junior girls, and then the masters like D, like the older guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then it was us, two masters female categories. And so it seems like it never changed. Like I would have thought that it would have been smaller, but it seems fairly.
Yeah, there was always a pretty good turnout when it was like a bigger event,
Mm-hmm.
especially for the women. But mind you, maybe yeah, no, yeah, it was a pretty good event for like provincials or something like that. Yeah, good
Yeah,
size.
did they have clubs for women, or were there
There was
any
no
clubs
such
or
thing as women's clubs and women's teams. Absolutely not. It was a
oh,
club that everyone joined.
right.
And yeah, I remember, yeah, it's like mostly guys, mostly guys. I was
Tell us, talk to us about it.
in Calgary. That I was on the Cyclemeisters when I started. Well, so I went from
Cyclemeisters, that's
I
awesome.
was in Kimberley on the Kimberley, BC. We had a little club there. Mountain. There's a sports store in Kimberley, Mountain Magic, I think is the name. Anyways, so we had a little club, and I was the token girl on the club. It was all guys, and
Uh,
but we traveled around together and raced, and we had a great time. And then when I came back to Alberta, I joined the Cyclemeisters. So it was great. Ed Novotny, I think Ed's probably passed on by now, but he was like this diehard guy that just supported everybody who didn't have a penny, who wanted a bike and who wanted to race. He was really wonderful. And I'm trying to think of some of the other names of people back then. And anyways, we traveled between Alberta and BC to do all of our racing. And that year, nationals were in Calgary, so it was easy. And then there was couple of women I'm trying to think who also went on to the national team who stayed in Alberta. I happened to come to Ontario at that time, and then
is it for
uh,
school or?
actually, well, it was actually the next season I came to Ontario after I made the national team. Then I came to Ontario. Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you. What was I going to ask you? Oh, so back then, when you got to Alpine's racing, was that because you just lived in Alberta and that was the thing to do? Or were
Yeah,
you in a club?
yeah, I was in a club. Our family skied at Lake Louise, so I was on the Lake Louise ski.
Oh, that's nice.
And yeah, it
Lake
was
Louise
nice.
is nice.
That was like our ritual every morning. We Saturday morning we'd be up at 5 o'clock and we drive out to the mountains. And every single weekend of my life growing up was pretty much in the mountains, whether it was skiing or hiking or biking as a
Oh,
kid.
wow.
Yeah, and so
So,
go ahead.
so part of that club, they had you on bikes in the summer. That was kind of, or was that
Yeah,
your own doing?
that was my own doing. We did dryland training, but
Oh, okay.
it was more my own doing because I just wasn't very good at sitting still. And I just love to feel the wind in my face. So
Right, of
biking
course.
was great.
Now, how did you feel being one of the only women back then riding with guys?
You know what?
So I know some women don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah,
Um, did
I think I had a
you?
lot of brothers and cousins that were guys. So I kind of
Oh, okay.
I grew up with like always doing things with the guys. So
Right.
it wasn't uncomfortable for me. And I found that generally, I was treated just like an equal. In as far, I mean, I didn't feel like, everything was like great. Everything was straight up, simple and easy. The only thing the volume's gone.
Oh, can
Oh
you
no,
hear me?
now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to think of where the challenges were.
Yeah.
They were really supportive of the women back then. I mean, because there were so few of us. And the guys were like, and the coaches were like, oh, this is great, like come on out and ride with us and come to the races with us. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was a very supportive thing, but there wasn't a lot of women who, you have to be a little bit of a daredevil.
Yeah.
You're like racing down mountains, these big like switchbacks and climbing and riding close together next to people. So a lot of women are like more, they don't want to crash and rip their skin up. And I
Yeah.
think I was just skiing and going fast, so it was
You do
easy.
have to create a bit of a nerve, I would say.
Yeah,
And yeah, a bit of a comfort zone in there. Even now, like when I coach women, it's just like, you're gonna feel totally uncomfortable here until you get comfortable. And
yeah,
then sometimes you still don't feel comfortable.
yeah,
But I just find it's over time you develop the trust and then also the
yeah.
knowledge inside you of who is a good lead to ride beside. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I
You
mean,
always
to
get
be
the
honest with you, it's more like it's the first few times of riding in a group or in
Mhm.
a pack at high speeds that can be a bit unnerving. But if
Yeah.
by kind of relaxing and seeing that the other people, nobody wants to crash. Everybody wants to stay up. Everyone wants to get to the finish line. So everyone's riding a straight line. You can be
Mhm.
like inches away and actually totally safe, totally
Yeah.
steady, no fear. It's like it's really a beautiful experience
Oh, I
riding
totally
in a pack. Even if
I agree with
not the
you.
talking side of it, but just everyone in this pack riding together, kind of moving forward, focused in a way. There's a very special kind of energy in that, which I find is a little bit different than running.
Mm.
Running because you're in the pack, it's almost like it's a team sport when you're riding all together. Everyone's working together to draft and echelon and move through the wind, and it's a really beautiful time actually in the pack.
Mhm.
Mm.
No, I completely agree. And yeah, it's a good synergy. I can think of a couple times where racing where I felt like that kind of comfort, in a group. Because sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like very much a lot of movement happening. And I'm talking about racing
Hmm.
more where, you just got to be um, hyper aware of what's going on.
Hyper aware, like your concentration, the
Yeah.
power of concentration becomes so amazingly intense and acute.
Hmm.
Like you can pick up things from like way out
Yeah.
on the side. You're just aware of everything. It's amazing. You're so zoned in. Yeah.
I think and when you get to that part when you're racing, it feels amazing,
Yeah.
you know.
True.
So taking on, so you got onto the national team and you're with a group of women, or are you just one woman?
Yeah. So my first
Oh,
experience with the team was an invitation to come to Texas and do the winter training camp in Texas in Austin. And it was great. There was a group of the Canadian national team men, and they had a big house that they all stayed in. And we were a few blocks away in another house. So the team rented two big homes. And there was like six women and
oh,
maybe eight or
cool.
10 guys. And we just trained for 2 months. And then we did the tour
2
of
months. Wow.
and then we did the tour of Texas in Austin. So it's a nice stage race. So that was my first kind of
Oh, cool.
international level. Riders came from Europe, France,
Yeah.
Germany.
How long was that tour?
I think it was like maybe about a 7-day stage race.
Right.
Not huge, but it was kind of like an early season one for North America. And
Right.
yeah, it was kind of the early season one. That was an international event. And that was a great experience, actually. It was really fun.
I bet.
And then,
So is that when you then went over to Europe?
and then from there, uh, I moved I came back to Calgary and decided I wanted to move down east. So I came
Mm.
to Ottawa.
Yeah.
And within a few weeks of being in Ottawa, there was a selection race in St. Catharines that was for a
Okay.
team that was going to the Tour de France. So it was,
Oh my God, cool. Okay, talk
so it
about
was
that.
the second year that, and I didn't know that there was even a first year of women going to the Tour de France, which was in 1984. So also
Mhm.
1984, for a lot of people that don't, this is shocking news. 1984 was the first year, maybe it's not, now we're in 2021, but when I was young, I was shocked to learn that 1984 was the first year that women's road racing was allowed in the Olympics. There was
Oh,
no women's road racing in the Olympics before that. That was the very first Olympics in LA. So
was it
that same year was also the very first edition of the Women's Tour de France. So it was 1984, 1985. And then
right?
it ended after those 2 years. But
Yeah.
it was great because we did all the same stages as the men, everything. It was, we had the team cars, we had the hotels.
You got to race it?
Yeah, yeah, totally. It was like,
Oh my gosh.
it was a really wonderful. So I was on the team on the Tour de France team. So just going back, so in St. Catharines, there was a qualification race.
Hmm.
Denise Kelly was there, and
Oh
Laura.
my gosh, yeah, I met Denise.
Okay, so unfortunately, Denise didn't make it on the team for the tour. She would have done incredibly well in the mountains in the Alps, but she had a broken arm at the trials, and she still raced the trials, and she still did
Oh,
very well. But there was no way she could compete at that international.
right.
So yeah, so anyways, I guess there were six of us that made the team. Laura Ruptash and Senta Bauermeister and myself were the three from the Ottawa area. And then there was
Ooh.
Kellyanne Way and uh, Sue Lemieux from BC and another girl from Quebec whose name I can't remember. Sorry, I forgot her name.
That's
Yeah, so
okay.
we and then from there we went to France with our coach and soigneur, and we had the whole package. Like we were riding with Bernard Hinault and Steve Bauer and all these guys at the time.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was
So,
really.
so was it a full 21
Yeah,
days for the women?
I believe it was.
You don't
I
remember? I
don't
was
remember the
fighting
details.
so much.
But I know what they did for the women's race. We always had the same finish line as the men, the same location. But you know, the men were riding 230K. The women would ride like 100K, anywhere between 80.
Oh, okay. So you didn't have the same start
We would usually
line.
start mid race at where the men had one of their sprint, you know,
Oh, okay.
point sprint lines or something. We'd start at that point, and we would always start a bit earlier than the men, maybe an hour or so or two
Right.
before the men, so that we would finish, and then within another hour the men would be finishing.
Did
So there
they
was
ever pass you?
no, thank God. Actually,
Oh, imagine that.
the women were pretty
You must
fast.
neutralize so the men can pass.
I know.
No.
So there was one woman who, so that Jeannie Longo raced, you know, she did the tour that year, and also another woman named Maria Canines, who's not as well known as Jeannie Longo, because her career wasn't as prolific, you could say, or as long. Jeannie Longo raced on into her 50s on an international level
Oh,
at
wow.
elite, not just as a masters, but as an
Hmm.
elite. But Maria Canines was an Italian cross country ski racer, and in the off season she did cycling. But she had incredible,
Yeah.
you know, lungs basically, and
Hmm.
she actually her times climbing. She was consistently climbing the pace of the men's lead pack, like not the guys on the break out the front on the climbs, but her climbing pace, like she just blew
So
the
were you
top.
guys so was she always ahead or were you guys able to keep up with her?
You know, like she wasn't like Maria Canines was like she was really lovely. Like, you know, we'd be riding in the pack and we're all in the pack. And then it wasn't like she'd make an attack.
She
You know,
like
it's just like kind of run off the
slowly
front.
increased her speed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, and then you know, as you know, the pack sort of stretches out, and you always kind of end up with the same few people when you're on a long climb that goes up for like 15K, or you know, you're climbing for an hour, and then you have
Yeah.
to descent. So there's always a few people that you know you'd see on the climbs, and there's always a few people you wanted to stay away from in the descents. And there was always a few people who you knew you wanted to stay away from, when it was
period.
Yeah, period. So I think my days of riding with the cadet men in BC, cadet boys in BC, taught me that it's very important to be at the front of the pack all the time. So that was it. As long as we stayed in the front, it was good. Yeah.
It's always good at the
It's
top
always good.
quarter. That's what I say. I say, girls, I took a bunch of girls to an event. Like it was like okay, it was just an event, but even events turn into racing, like races. You know what I mean? Like
Even for people
like
to say they're not competitive.
if they're timed, they're events and people want to go fast. So I was like, okay, I had 12 girls. They've never raced. This is like 2 years ago. And I'm like, okay, we need to move up because we're like at the back. I'm like, you do not want to start a race at the back. Like, trust me, you think it's safe back here, but you're going to be riding by yourself for the whole time.
Yeah.
If you ever want a chance to ride with anybody, you need to start in the mid pack so you have people to jump on with along the way if you can't stay with like a stronger pack in front. I'm like, who's with me? And all the girls are, their eyes are like bugging out. What are you talking about? And I'm like, we're going up there. We're going up towards the front or even halfway. So I moved halfway. I took like 5 of them. They're like, okay, I'll go. So I took 5 of them and we're halfway. I'm like, okay, we can still maneuver our way to the front before it starts, like closer. The first quarter, I always say, get in the first quarter. You'll get in a good pace pack. If that one's too fast, you can drop back to the next one. There will be many behind you, basically. Yeah. You don't want to start at the back because you want to
start at the back.
Never start at the back because you'll be by yourself for the whole race, and 100K by yourself is brutal.
Yeah, totally. You got it.
Yeah, so it's just like they're like, what? I'm like, trust me, just trust me and follow me. Let's go. Don't worry. It's not like a big race peloton. Like it strings out pretty quickly, but there's always the faster groups that you can jump on, and if you can work less for longer, then it's worth it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Work less for longer. Like that's racing right there.
Yeah, totally.
So tell me about Tour de France. Tell me about that experience.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, so we had the one thing that always sticks out is the team car. Like so back then there was no women's pro racing. There was pro men, and there was all women were amateur, and you raced for your country. You did not have a pro team.
Right. Okay.
There was the Canadian team, the US team, France, there was Russia, there was China even had a team in that tour, Colombia, like from all over the world. There was women, and Germany, throughout Europe. Most of the teams were from Europe. Mm-hmm. And we had a team car, which was really cool. We had 2 team cars, Peugeots with your country flag on the car and all the bikes up on the roof. We were like, because none of us had been at that kind of event. Like they didn't have that kind of thing for women, that level of support for the riders. It was just amazing. And, huge start lines. The crowds were like incredible.
How many teams were there? So you're saying like a team per country, basically.
Yeah,
you would say.
Some countries had an A and a B team. They had 2 squads.
So how many ladies would you say were on the
100 of us riding?
Oh, that's really good.
It was a good size.
Yeah.
Theater. Yeah, very, very good. We stayed in, like the men, we had little hotels and chalets that we'd stayed in along each stage of the tour. We had our coach and mechanics and soigneur, great food, beautiful countryside, and it was kind of like blink. Wow, this is how. I wasn't even aware that there was a selection for the Women's Tour de France. I just ended up.
Where am I?
I know. And the racing was, I I was actually very blown away because in Texas, I had done very well at the Tour of Texas. And the reason I think I'd done very well is because I was determined not to get blown off the back before. So all winter, a friend of mine who was a weight, he was like a bodybuilder and a weight trainer, and he really helped me develop a lot more power in my legs. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't care. I just don't want to get blown off the back.
Tell
And
me how important weight training is for cycling.
Yeah, I think it's now there's all kinds of approaches in dealing with it, but you really need that raw kind of explosive power. That real strength, power strength is such a, aerobic capacity is vital, but that kind of power in your legs and the lower torso. Well, even you have to be strong everywhere, but you need that real explosive strength in the lower body. And I kind of had it a little bit from ski racing as well, so it kind of overlapped well. I don't know what I was talking about.
Well, you're talking about your coaching. He put you through a weight training program before you hit Tour of Texas.
Yeah, and so I did really, really well at the Tour of Texas, even though there was an international component. I was quite surprised that I could stay up at the front of the pack and do breakaways and do really well in the hill climbs and everything. And then when we went to France for the tour, the level was just up a whole notch. I was suddenly to stay at the front of the pack throughout the ride on a stage. It was a huge effort for me to always I made a point of always staying at the front because I didn't want to be in the back of the pack.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't want to get dropped.
I get you. It's worth the effort because actually you work way harder at the back than at the front.
You get dropped.
Oh gosh.
Or there's crashes. So you just stay up at the front, and everyone at the front is very focused. It's easy to see where you're going. It's great. And so the level of fitness was I don't know. I was like, wow, all these women are so fit. It was great. It was really inspiring, actually. And they were, it was really, really fun. My favorite part for me was the big climbs because I'm pretty small, 5'3". I was about 105 pounds at that time. And 5'3", 5'4" on a tall day if I stretch it out.
It's funny.
So I was light, so I had a high strength to weight ratio. So I did very well in the climbs, and I really enjoyed them. And it was kind of like the climbing I found is kind of like a very meditative thing because you have to stay very focused, you have to stay very in the zone, but you really have to ride your pace. You cannot ride someone else's pace in the long, long climbs. And it's a real kind of inner experience. It's very beautiful. Yeah. And the other thing that was super fun about the climbs was just the throngs, thousands of people all along the roads on these big switchbacks climb, and you can't even breathe, because
oh my gosh, you got to experience all that, biking through, you
I mean, it wasn't quite as severe, I'm sure, as the men's. By the time the men came, the crowds were thicker, but there was so many people who were so supportive of the women's tour. It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely crowds and crowds of people.
So how did you feel after, so you're on the start line, you're talking about looking at all these women, how fit they are. So after the first day, do you remember ooh, because it's, the first day is always sussing out the group and who's where, and then you're okay, so this is who I have to look for. She's really good. Stay away from her. What do you remember what your first thought, your thoughts were after the first day? Because you got 20 days after. You're okay, this is gonna be fast.
Yeah.
This is gonna be
I definitely realized that it was everyone was very well trained, very, very prepared. And and I was up for the challenge. I put it that way. Like I was also really well prepared. I didn't realize that I was at that level, I guess. I was kind of surprised that I was at that level. Like I did actually really well in the Tour de France. I was like the top Canadian. I probably would have, I finished the prologue race TT. I was 21st. I did a number of stages where I finished in the top 15, top 10.
Nice.
And then I had a couple of bad days where I was in a crash, or I left my cycling shoes in the hotel room. And I'm on my Birkenstocks at the start line, and my coach is ready to strangle me. And
you serious? You raced in your Birkenstocks?
Well, fortunately, it was the stage. Well, we had the longest climb. It was the most epic climb of the tour.
Oh my God.
And we're starting to warm up and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, Michelle, my cycling shoes, I left them in the hotel. He's like, you can't be serious. And it was 30 kilometers away. So the race organizers called the police in that village. The police in the village went to our hotel. They got my cycling shoes, and this is like, so 30, 40 minutes later, we're all on the start line waiting, and everyone's wondering what we're waiting
Throwing
for.
You your shoes. Put them on.
You hear that gendarme screaming up to the start line, and they throw me my shoes. And as soon as I got my shoes in my hand, they start the start gun. The race started. So I'm scrambling to get my shoes on. But anyways, at least I got my shoes.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious.
That is the best story ever.
No. I mean, it wouldn't happen now. You'd have a second set around. And you
yeah,
know.
Really. Or they're like, bike shorts, shoes, shirt, helmet. That's always like, make sure you got everything like that in your bag. I don't care.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The police. Now that is some creative thinking. Go into my room. My bike shoes are like underneath my. Oh my gosh. What'd your room look like after?
Well,
You're here somewhere.
We stayed in little different chalets every day of the tour. So that was one little village that we stayed in that one night. So it was an empty hotel room, and they found them easily enough, fortunately.
Oh, good. Oh my God, you're Crocs.
Another nice story I remember. Well, there was a couple of goofy ones, like the second stage. So the prologue happens, and the next day is stage 2 or stage 1. It was a flat stage. So I'm not a sprinter. I'm like, okay, the sprint's going to come up. I'm just going to move to the back and get out of the way for the sprint part. But anyways, 30 kilometers from the finish, I get a flat tire. So, I'd never done the thing where you get your tire on, the mechanic comes, your team car comes up, changes your tire, the guy runs behind you and pushes you. And then there's this long train of about 30 cars riding behind the pack. And you have to like echelon, like you're riding, like hopping from car to car to car to car to car to get into the pack. That was so much fun. I'd seen it on TV. I'd seen the pros do it. And here I am doing it.
Well, we'll just wait for. I'm gonna take a sip of water here. Prapti to get back on.
Sorry, Sylvie.
That's okay.
My battery.
Like, what? And what? Oh my gosh. So that's super exciting.
Yeah. And then, anyways, after that, then I get up to the pack, and I'm in the pack, and it's like getting close to the sprint. And I was kind of trying to move myself out of the way of the big sprinters. and I caught a wheel on a curb, and I had a huge crash, like about 15 meters outside of that line. It used to be 1 kilometer from the finish. If you finish inside 1 kilometer, if you crash on the inside of 1 kilometer, you get the pack time, or you finish.
Okay.
If you crash on the outside of that, you
You're
have,
like, no.
you have to cross the finish line. So I was like gone, you know, head first into this big wall, lying on the ground for 10 minutes, like they're trying to wake me up. Anyways, get to the finish line. So that was my spectacular day one. But everything else after that was uphill. I mean,
that was day one?
That was day one. But after that, I had no more problems. So it was great.
Okay, just a second. Is that the same, the Crocs? Like you missed your Crocs, you had a flat, and you crashed in the same day? No.
Crocs were maybe stage 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow. I'm glad you came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope the rest of this tour isn't the same.
Yeah. I was a little bit like shaken up by that, but fortunately it was all good after that.
That's good. So did you participate the year after as well?
You know, I didn't. There was no Women's Tour de France after that.
You said it was 2 years, no? Or is it just one?
2 years, 1984 and 1985.
Yeah.
And then it never happened again.
Did you get to participate in both years?
No, I didn't. Just in 85. 84, I was still racing sort of more on a national.
Oh, you did the last year. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just did the
Oh
last.
my God. That is
really
so exciting.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And you know, I don't know the story about, there must have been someone on the board of the organizing committee of the tour that said, hey, let's make this happen. And then after 2 years, who knows? I don't know. There's a story to why it ended, but it was fantastic. Sorry, your volume.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I said it's probably like too much taken away from the men. I don't know the story either, but if you ever check out Catherine Bertine's book Stand, she starts talking about UCI racing from 2005. And that's when she started, and her push to get women back into the Tour de France.
Right.
So she's basically was one of the spearheads, or the spearhead, who has gotten it back, because they just announced it that it's going to be back next year. I know. You should be part of that.
So exciting.
You should be part of like the like, I'm going to connect you guys actually. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
that would be cool to speak with her about it. It was an amazing experience, and I feel really, really fortunate that that landed in my life experience path, you know. And
seriously,
yeah, it was great. Very fortunate.
That's a huge,
yeah.
Like.
And we did well. The Canadian team did really well. We were competitive throughout it, you know. We're not like a huge cycling nation, but everyone finished the tour. Everyone rode strong. We had a great team spirit. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Have a finish for Canada? Like, did they rank all the countries?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Actually, I'm not sure of our overall position, actually. But there was general classification ranking, polka dot jersey, you know, the whole thing, sprint, and general classification. Yeah. Maybe we were 7th, I think, something like that. Canada. Yeah.
But yeah, super excited that it's going to be back next year, so we can all like really cheer it on and let them know that.
And those women have never, you know, the women that are racing now, they're doing, you know, 5 and 7 day stage races, I think. But I don't think any of the pro women, elite women's racing has like 2-week or longer tours, 2 or 3 week length tours.
The only one that I know of that used to exist was a Tour of PEI. That was 11 days.
Wow.
And I think that ended 2000, I want to say 11, like somewhere around 11 or 10. Because I remember I went to a stage race in Charlevoix, as a senior 1-2, and I came first in the time trial, and I was like completely blown away. I was like, what? But all the senior 1-2 competitive women were at PEI. They were not at Charlevoix. So I was like, I don't care. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell? And I came second in the overall standings, which is just
Wow,
like,
good race.
I know, like, because
Good.
that was like 4 events over 2-3 days.
Right.
And yeah, so it's like, I know why I won, but I don't care. It's like none of the girls were here. They're all like over there. But
Yeah, oh, that's good.
so tell me, so then you so where did your cycling go after that once you were
Yeah,
done?
it was kind of like I was kind of a blip on the radar. I
Oh,
came left really fast.
is there?
But basically, so that season was a very long season for me because it started in end of January in Texas and went through racing, training, and then into May, June, Tour de France, July. Then I was racing in other places in Europe, in other parts of France and in Norway, and then back in the US. And then there was World Championships.
Yeah,
And
that's November, isn't it?
I was like so burnt out. And the next season came along, and then I realized, like, I'm not going to do that to myself again because it was like too much. So I started out the season. We raced in. We didn't do the Tour of Texas that year. We went straight to Europe, and by the time I came back, because there was no women's tour that year, then I remember coming back to Canada in July, and the team, I did something really stupid. We had a stage race in Utah. It was a international stage race in
I've heard
Utah.
about that one.
Okay, it was a great race,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be at it because I was so burnt out from traveling in Europe, and I wasn't used to that lifestyle, like living in this. It's a very intense lifestyle racing,
I can imagine.
So I just we had a rest day and the team went out for a training ride. I wasn't feeling well. That's what I told my coach, and I just decided to come back to Ottawa. So I didn't finish that stage, and then after that I was removed from the team. Understandably.
Yeah. You just like, I'm just gonna drive home. Bye.
Yeah, so I got my airline ticket and I just flew home. And that was
Well,
it.
I mean, kudos to you for listening to yourself, because a lot of women are afraid to lose that spot and they'll just continue doing that to their bodies. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I
instead
wasn't
of saying,
happy.
like,
I needed
just
to
like
be
that.
I needed to enjoy it. I needed to be able to be happy, and I was just so miserable. I'm like, what am I doing? This is my life. I want to be happy.
I love it.
Thank you very much.
Take charge. I feel like it's like ducking out of the party without telling anybody. Bye. Not even a bye. Just do the full circle and leave.
Yeah. Looking back at it in hindsight, that was very reckless of me and I was very ungrateful for the opportunities I'd been given. So I could have done it in a much more balanced way. But anyways, that's what I did.
Yeah. I need to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe communicating to the coach might have been, where is Debbie? Like, wasn't she just here yesterday?
All right. Yeah.
Reckless, but yet listening to your body. So you're back in Ottawa.
So
What did you end up doing?
Well, I've stayed in Ottawa ever since then, actually. I returned to Ottawa and yeah, I actually switched into running. I got into meditation. That was around the time I was getting into meditation, and meditation was actually a big part of, I think, for me, the competitive cycling. I was not a seriously aspiring competitive athlete. Like my dream was not to go to the Olympics and compete in the Tour de France and the World Championships. I was really fortunate to have that experience, but it wasn't like what was driving me forward. And the thing that I kind of attribute my success, my short-lived but success in cycling.
I mean, you had a ton of experience in that short-lived success that
Yeah.
probably a lot of people would love right now.
No, I really attribute it to meditation, because at the time when I started getting to that international level, I was saying to myself, look, I'm like 5'3.5". I'm like a little nobody athlete. I'm not going to be strong enough to compete with these women at this international level on a regular basis. I need to tap into some extra strength. So I did the weight training, and I'm like, I need more strength. So I started getting some meditation. And it people think, how can meditation and competitive sport go together? But they are so united. It's like they're together. Like you can't have one without the other almost. It's like that deep power of concentration, being very, very, very centered. So you can stay very focused for these blocks of time, so you can perform at your peak. So the meditation was what really allowed me, I think, to reach the level I did. And then after I finished competing, then I continued to pursue my meditation journey with more one-pointedness. And then I eventually opened my restaurants and stuff.
Oh, well, that's cool. So where did you, have you always been a vegetarian, like a vegan, or?
A vegetarian since around that time, since about 85, I became vegetarian.
So when did you decide to do a restaurant? Was that something on your radar, or you're just kind of?
No, never in a million years. But it was something. My spiritual teacher, Sri Chinmoy, it was something that he encouraged me to do, and I was like, but I can steam broccoli and do toast and eggs. That's about all I know in the food world. But he really, really encouraged me to open a restaurant, a vegetarian restaurant, and so I followed his encouragement and guidance, and went ahead and did it. And it wasn't so much, I think, for me to have a vegetarian restaurant. It was more like the experience of starting a business, and that kind of sense of responsibility, and just like you learn so much about yourself, your own limitations and your weaknesses, and you can really kind of become a better person through challenging yourself.
That or burn out over.
You've totally burn out.
Yeah.
And so on many levels, anyways, it was really great. So I did that for 24 years, but it took like all my time and all my energy and dedication to really kind of make that happen successfully. So then when we closed in 2018, I was having problems with my feet and my knee, so I couldn't keep up running. So I'm like started riding again. I'm like, oh my God, riding is so much fun. I love it. So now I'm riding.
Been away from it for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you do that restaurant all by yourself, or did you have partners?
No, I was the sole owner. Yeah.
You did all the prep, like everything?
No, I was the sole owner, but there was a team.
Oh, okay.
At one point there was 12 staff there, like between full-time and part-time. So yeah, there was.
Is it a little takeout place, or was it like a restaurant?
It was a restaurant, small. We had about 27 seats.
Oh,
and we did a lot of takeout
decent.
on the campus. I was really, really successful little restaurant, actually, really quite well known, but we didn't promote it and market it because we had such a niche clientele right near the University of Ottawa. So people just from the arts department, law department were right across the street from us almost. So we were like, hi, we were like their second home. Yeah.
Then you really don't need to advertise after that, right? Like,
yeah, I was really fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah. So what made you close it down? Just sort of it ran its course. You're kind of you said your knees.
We needed a new location because the university, we were so tied into the campus, and the university structure had changed so much, and they started having a lot of on-campus food service and whatnot. And our business started really diving down. We needed a new location. I needed a ton of money to do that. And I just wasn't up for the effort that it was going to take to reinvent ourselves in a new spot. I'm kind of like simple. I just like I like my life to be kind of simple and
Mhm.
manageable. So yeah, so we closed.
So then now what are you occupying your time with?
I
Because
work I
you're
work a lot still.
I know you can't keep yourself can't get like you're always busy. But what are you doing now?
Yeah, so right now I'm working as an office manager at a beautiful venue in Ottawa called All Saints Event Space. So it's a
Oh yes, I remember I was talking about
former
that. Yeah.
Anglican church that was in
Yeah.
City Hill. It's over 100 and something years old, which is very old for Canadian standards.
Hmm.
And Leanne Musa, along with a group of other individuals from the community, purchased that church, which was for sale, to save it from becoming part of a
Hmm.
condominium or the University of Ottawa campus is what it was going to be.
Right.
So then it converted it into a beautiful event center. We have a beautiful restaurant. Uh, uh, First, amazing pastry bakery happening there right now, and we're opening tomorrow
Ooh.
because we've been
Any
closed.
pastries?
Well, the pastries have been going all summer, but all spring, but we've been closed because of the lockdown. So we can finally open tomorrow. So we're ramping up.
I'll just have to let our cycling club know there's another spot
I'm
to
telling you,
stop
I
for
think
pastry.
that spot is going to be the spot in Ottawa for cyclists who want a amazing chocolatine, almond croissant, and an amazing coffee. We have a beautiful big terrace. It typically can hold
You?
5 people. Yeah, it opened a year and a half ago. The terrace opened. But actually, now we can.
Oh,
Now, when we're full capacity because we've extended it, we can probably have 150 people out on the terrace now. But because of the
where did you
COVID,
build it?
so one is on the front side of Laurier and the other is on the back side of Blackburn. So they're connected
Oh,
around a
okay.
corner. So one is covered, a covered terrace, and the other is an open terrace in the trees. They're very beautiful. So it's a great
Oh,
place for cyclists.
geez, I have to drive by there again. It's been
Yeah,
a
yeah.
while.
And Christophe Masson is our pastry chef, and he's like a remarkably talented French pastry expert. Yeah, and then we have a great guy on our head of our culinary team, Jason, also really skilled. Yeah, so we've got a great crew
Good.
here.
I'm gonna add it to our stops in
Yeah,
the city. Yeah.
do.
And so now you're working there and but now you've gotten back into cycling and I know that you're kind of working with the Ottawa Bike Club, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not
Um,
working with them. I'm a member of the Ottawa Bicycle
oh,
Club. Yeah,
okay. So that's where you're gonna tear up the time trials. So
yeah, and I'm going to be coming out to your time trial.
you better be.
Absolutely.
I was just out there this morning, marking up the turnarounds and the start
Fantastic.
and yeah, I'm in the middle of getting all the approvals and everything because we kind of had to, like everything else, kind of had to wait and I didn't want to do too much before the go ahead was done. And now Quebec says yes. And our event's probably going to be one of the first ones on the
So
calendar.
great. And
Yeah,
registration opens tomorrow, right? Or is
I
it
don't know.
today?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I don't even keep track of this anymore. I'm just like I have girls who tell me what's going on. I'm like, what's new in the lockdown news today? Like,
No,
I
but
don't
I'm
know.
for your event registration.
Oh yes, I think next week
Okay.
because we're still talking about categories
Okay.
because I want to add an open category, but I don't know about open category. I mean, anybody can participate in a time trial with doesn't matter what kind of bike they're riding.
Exactly. That's the
I
beautiful thing about time trialing. It's a race against yourself.
yeah, and so some people think you need to have a fancy bike, but I just say
No way.
you don't like you can do just as good and on anything.
Yeah.
But like we'll have a para category, so tandem and para athletes, and
Great.
if the team time trial that would start in Chelsea proper all the way down and finish at our finish line. So that's 27K.
Wow.
So I'd have to get approval for that, because in the last 2 years, there's been a lot of development in Chelsea. So there's a little bit, I don't know if there's so much more traffic on the 105. It's usually like, you know, Chelsea, Old Chelsea Road, Scott Road. I haven't necessarily seen like an influx. So Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, well, I'm just going to be watching it. So yeah, but you're going to have to bring out lots of people from the club.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people are looking forward to it, Sylvie. Yeah.
Exciting to hear. I'll have to give you our event page, and I'll post it actually. Well, actually, by the time your episode is aired, this event will have gone over. But I will still post it so people can follow it anyways for next year.
Right.
Yeah. Well, so I think this comes to an end. I mean, that was amazing. Like, it's so exciting to hear about that time. And that knowing that the Tour de France for women is coming back.
Yeah, it's really wonderful for women's cycling, and the inspiration and yeah, it's a great event, and women are more than capable of, you know, yeah, it's about time.
Yeah. And if I was of age and on a pro team, I would feel like like a fire under my butt to want to be on a team that would be participating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like I can feel it right now, and it is not going to happen for me, but, but I'm excited about it because
women all over the world that ride. It's like such great news. It's kind of like this breakthrough, you know, like the glass ceiling is burst open finally.
Yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of sponsors too.
Yeah, totally.
And it would be great to see, because this day and age, in the last like 10 years, there are so many more women entrepreneurs in business to actually support a female cycling pro team, like female to female.
Right.
That's my vision, to see something like that. Even like junior teams.
Right.
Coached by women, supported by women, funded by women. That's my dream. That's what I want to see more of.
Wow, that's great. Well, it's gonna happen. Yeah, and you know, thanks to people like yourself, making it.
Just pull you into the mix, so you better watch it. Well, thank you so much, Debbie or Prapti Jensen. This has been exceptional. I think I'm going to move your episode to mid Tour de France.
Oh, cool.
Why not? Yeah. I think this should be promoted. Somebody who experienced the Women's Tour de France in '85.
Yeah,
I totally like listen to how it was back then.
Yeah. So. And it's interesting though, just like if you go online and you try to look at the Tour de France 1985, 1984, like women's tour, there's like no information on it. That's one sad thing. Like all the archival stuff that's available online is all about the men. So you might see a shot of Jenny Longo and maybe one shot of Maria Camines and Cecilia Audet, but that's about it. Yeah.
And no peloton where you might be in there?
No, there's no, like if you look, there's nothing on it.
Except for the ones that you have?
Those are, I don't know how I got those photos. I mean, I haven't put anything up. I'm not like techie and all that stuff. I haven't posted anything, but if you just do a general search for the women's tour on sort of like big sites, there's nothing. Yeah, but there's tons of stuff on the men's, of course, but just not.
I can't believe, oh my gosh, you must feel so amazing that you did that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have feel more, the thing is, I was so not like aiming for that. It just kind of happened in my life. So it was like an incredible experience, and I feel so fortunate to have had it. But it's really different, it's really different when you get given something and you haven't worked for it, and then you do something that you've worked really hard for. So that's kind of how I feel with that whole experience. Like it kind of just landed on me. Like I wasn't aiming for it. I wasn't like aspiring for that. But I'm so grateful I had it. And I think I would have maybe done a lot more with it all had it been something I was really pursuing, you know. But anyway, but it was
No,
really
that's a
fun.
good point. But here's a question. Um, did you find that as that year went, like you enjoyed the Tour de France, you're like, I'm happy I'm here. But as you went through all the rest of the race season, you're kind of like, I'm just not feeling it. You're feeling it a little bit less every race because you're kind of just kind of here. Is that how you felt? Kind of?
Um, I think it's really interesting because as you age, like it's like it was like a long time ago, 35, 38 years ago. So at the age of 23, like my perspective and my way of seeing things was so different than now. So at that time, I don't say I was losing interest at all. I was having so much fun.
Oh, okay.
I
So
was
you
having
were
so
having
much fun.
fun. I mean, what I'm talking about is like the fun was starting to dissipate. Like it's kind of like not
Yeah,
fun, not so much
the
kind of.
first year was really fun. The second year, when I decided, when I
Oh,
did like I
okay.
did,
Yeah.
um, I was sort of really struggling, like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I love biking, because of everything. But then I'm looking at myself and going, I'm not having fun anymore. This is like a miserable job, slogging it out with people who aren't happy, who I wasn't happy, like that, it was like I wasn't finding the joy in it. So for me, it was like, why am I doing this? So I stopped and I pursued what I was interested in. So for some reason, your voice is cutting out a lot.
Were you getting paid to race?
What's that?
Were you getting paid to race?
No, not at all. The women didn't get a penny. All the money we made from every single race as a national team athlete, all the races we did that had prize money, all that money went to the national team. We never received.
What?
We
Like if you
never received
won
a
it, you guys didn't
penny
keep
of it.
it?
We didn't get a penny of it. We weren't allowed to back then
What do you mean you weren't allowed to?
on a
That's
national.
usually what they race for. That's like part of
Now,
their income.
now it is, but at least for Canada, there was a lot of prize money in the Tour de France, but I was a top Canadian. I didn't get 1 cent ever from any race.
How did you fund your travel? Did they
The,
pay for
the
that?
national team paid for our travel accommodation, and we got, as a carded athlete, we got $450 a month to cover, our rent when we weren't working.
Yes, back then rent was a little bit cheaper than I'm
Yeah,
thinking now. And food was a whole
yeah.
lot cheaper.
But even then, 450 a month was, everyone still had to work full time. You had to have a job, or you had to be living with your family who cared for you, because so
Right.
there wasn't the support. There wasn't all the infrastructure and support for women then as there is now for men, or as there was then for men, and it's evolving for women so that the sport
Very slowly. I don't
slowly,
think,
yeah,
yeah. And
it,
that's part of what, Catherine is pushing for
yeah.
is equal opportunity.
It's interesting though, like there is really a difference. Like I watch a lot of, I'm got the GCN app and I'm watching all the racing, and the coverage of the men's is racing is very different than the coverage of the women's. But it's interesting, and I'm not in any way, I don't know what it is, but it's just something I've observed. With the men's racing, like men are more powerful than women. They have more muscle mass. They are stronger. when a guy's pack is going down the road and there's people attacking off the front, that it's so dramatic, it's so explosive. Like they are just like rocketing out the front of the pack and going. And then you watch a women's race. So it's very dramatic and dynamic. And you watch a women's race and it's kind of like they kind of ride off the front. There's a few of them that can ride a little harder off the front, but and I don't know if it's women's mentality, you know, I don't know. There's definitely a difference. And I think the women's racing is not as exciting to watch. Like for the pure kind of like action side of the sport.
You know, you have a point there, because when I used to race, I was like, and for the most part, I was an independent, but I had I had a team that I put together, but we were not on the same level. Like all of our fitness levels were so different, but we were a team. So like, you know, we were working towards that goal. But that is one of the things that, not that I could probably survive it, that I notice within women's racing, being in a women's race.
Yes.
I just like, is not anybody going? Like, should I go? Like, I'll go. And I would be in there. I'm like, hey, does anybody want to go with me? Because I'll go. Because like, let's just sprint off the front, because this is the perfect opportunity. We're down the hill. It's so freaking slow. What's going on? And I was just like, what?
I know.
And I would blow myself. Like, I'm just like, I'm going to this race. I'm going to attempt some breakaways. And also I would just watch the dynamic. If there was a bigger team in there, like of 6 girls, you could see the control that happened a whole lot, because if you have a dominant team in there,
yeah,
you wait for one of their breakaways. Like one of their girls is going to break away for sure. And then the other ones is going to like control the pack. And that's what happens in women's racing. I don't think it happens so much in men's, because there's so many other teams,
powerful teams
that will
counteract,
like, neutralize that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're right. That's a big part of it, actually.
Yeah.
It's still not quite the depth for like team racing in women's. I mean, there's a lot, but there are like a few teams. There's a few teams that are like way up there, and then the rest are not quite at that level.
You have to be super aggressive team.
Yeah.
Like as women, to not let that happen to you, and just not let like a team control so much, and just sit back. Like sitting back, I'm like, what? I'm like, let's go. Like,
I know.
Let's go.
You and I would have had a good time racing together, because
oh my gosh,
that was like my thing. I'd be like, come on, you guys, like there's 6 of them up the road.
I'd be like, hey, you want to go?
Or you'd be in a break, and then everyone would just sit on your wheel, and I'm like, come on, you guys, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Up front, come on.
You would just like this is the women's. One thing I forgot to mention, what was really funny, I remember some of the stage races that were flatter after a big mountain day. They would, we'd stop, like we'd slow down, we'd bathroom break. So the guys, of course, they can roll along the road and go, but the women can't. So the whole race would come to a dead stop. We'd all, like, both sides of the road, all the bikes down, everyone in the ditch.
Oh my God, I never thought of that.
And then you get back on your bike and you go. Of course, if it's a really intense stage, that's not an issue, because you're very focused and nothing's relaxed. So it's not a problem. But if it's an easy stage and you're all just kind of tooling along.
Like, who's got to pee? I got to pee. All right, let's
pee break.
Oh, see? Never thought of that, because I guess guys just pee on the bike.
You pee on the bike.
You can, yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose you could pee in your chamois. I don't know if you want to do that, but oh my gosh. Okay, I've got to actually get going at 11 o'clock. And I think I might just add this little extra conversation to somewhere in there, because it's really cool. It's fun. that there is good conversation.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Sylvie. Really enjoyed
Okay.
it.
Are you on Facebook yet?
You know, I'm never going to be on Facebook.
I'm gonna send our event page to, I guess, to that little email with Emily on it to put on your OBC page.
Okay.
And because that's basically what I'm gonna update.
Okay, on our Facebook, on the OBC Facebook page.
Yeah, if you can post it there.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm gonna update with, like as I get stuff together, registration, all that stuff is going to be on that Facebook page.
Okay.
Just to keep it central, because everybody who's raced is on there previously. So
great.
Yeah.
It's so great that you're putting this on. And you know what I'd like to see happen in Ottawa is, like, I don't want to keep you, but I really want us to have like a time trial hill climb. Like, starting down at the main road, like in the start of the park. I don't know what it's called. Gamelin.
In Chelsea.
Up to Champlain. Like
or up to Fortune.
Or up to Fort. Yeah. You know.
That's a controlled. I was thinking of doing that because NCC, you have to like just remove them. Like they're kind of, they don't want events.
Up to Fortune is perfect.
Yeah, that's pretty steep.
It's pretty steep.
It's a good prologue. It's like Charlevoix. Like their first one is like on, it's like 19 kilometers. No, maybe even less than that. Oh, maybe it's 19, but it's like up this like 21% grade.
Wow.
Like it's flat, and that's like, and then you turn and then the finish is there.
Wow.
Oh my God. It's like a kick in the face, man.
Wow.
And then you do the time trial the next day and then the crit in the afternoon and then the 90K road race on Sunday.
Wow. 4 stages. Nice. And you did so well in that.
I know. We used to go there every year. And Coupe des Amériques was another one. It was a 4 event stage over the weekend. That was in Sutton. That was another one.
Oh, Sutton. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they had the prologue all the way up to the to the chalet, well, beside
Fantastic.
it. And then they had time trial, and then they had a crit in Cowansville, and then they came back and you did like a 90K race route. And then you finished on the hill, like and 5K up.
Yeah, no joke.
That was a master's race only.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. Like if there was enough women masters, I would actually get back into road racing. But I don't want to race with the men. And I don't want to.
We had our own start.
The women masters.
Well, sorry. Maybe with the older guys. No, I don't even remember. It depended how many there were, but I've got to go. But we can talk about this after. Okay. And it's funny because I'm not sure. You should check that one out, see if it's on the calendar. It used to be an ACVQ series. It used to be one of theirs, and I think they stopped it a while ago because I haven't raced in 7 years.
Wow, is that long?
I know. That's why I'm like, I don't really want to do road racing. Like it kills me. Like it's so hard.
So hard.
And to train for that. So I like train for crits and time trials.
Oh,
short and sweet and painful.
Crits are so hard.
I just get it over with. I don't have to like, oh my God, die for 90K. No. By myself. The majority of it, probably.
Well, we have to do a ride. We'll ride.
Oh, we do. Yeah, let's organize one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Have a lovely day. Thanks, Sylvie.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Thanks to all of our listeners. Thanks to Debbie. And don't forget to put your notifications on. You never know who the next guest might be. And be sure to go in and give us some honest thoughts, a review, your greatest takeaway. Tell us, are you going to support the Women's Tour de France next year? You better be 100% on board. And also give us a rating. With that, have an amazing day, and we'll see you on the next episode.